I'll walk around. Board of Ed member late to the meeting. Next to 5.
Ready? Okay, 7 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order. If we could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Tonight is March 29th, 2023, and this is a special meeting of the Milford Board of Education. Before we get started, I just want people watching tonight to understand that we are continuing a conversation that we began on Monday, where we discussed a whole bunch of other potential options to offset a significant $1.8 million reduction to our proposed budget. So if you are first tuning in tonight and you don't have the benefit of those conversations, I think I can speak for all of us when I say our questions were asked so that we can fully understand, not to single out one area over another. So we might have already talked about something that you're wondering about. So I would encourage you to go back and find the recording of Monday's meeting. It's on the Milford Public Schools website. And understand that there really is no best scenario here. All of these options have drawbacks. Some are significant, and personally, I'm just trying to find a combination. I will be looking to find a combination of reductions that might offset the overall effect, that might have the least offset on the overall effect that the district, the work that the district has done over the past several years. So just remember that we may have already talked about some things that you're wondering about. Dr. Kutaya, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Do you want to do roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call, yes.
Catherine Ailing.
Here.
Adam DeYoung.
Here.
Megan Doyle.
Here.
Andrew Fowler.
Here.
Tracy Irby.
Here.
Emily McDonough Souza.
Here.
Gary Pellicetti.
Here.
Una Petrosky.
Here.
Cindy Wolf Boynton.
Here.
And Susan Glennon.
Here.
All 10 members present.
Thank you. Dr. Kutaya.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. Thank you, members of the Board of Education, and thank you to the community members who are present today. I will beg your indulgence as there are actually some additional members in the community that are present this evening. So while I will not go detail by detail on what we discussed Monday night, which by the way can be found through an easy button on the front page of our webpage, milforded.org, there is a new button that exists that is labeled Budget Central. So right there on the front page of our website. But I would like to do a very quick overview of part 1 of my presentation the other evening, and actually have a little bit more information to share with you and the public. So I'm going to do that lickety-split, and then we're going to go into part 2, where we can go through the additional pages in the spreadsheet of possible reductions. So very quickly, I'm going to turn my remote on. Thank you. So very quickly, I'm going to just remind everyone that everything we discuss and decide upon are based on the cornerstones of what we do in Milford, and that is developmental relationships framework, the model for high quality instruction, and our vision for the learner. I also want to remind you the scope of our work. It's a large scope and a deep one when you consider 5,400 students and 1,300 employees across 15 campuses. I also want to just provide an overview of the breakdown of the increase that was proposed by myself and adopted by you. That 3.43% of the 4,392 represents $3.5 million in increases in salaries and benefits. That is a very important key to our conversation this evening and moving forward, because the 2.58% that was given to us above this year's budget doesn't even cover our contractual obligations and salaries. There is no innovation or system improvements to be considered. If you just take that fact alone, we are forced to cut all of the categories below the salary line, as well as cut into the workforce of Milford Public Schools. That's a very important fact to remember, that the increase that we received doesn't even cover are salary increases that we are obligated to through contracts. A visual reminder that 71% of our budget, on average, by the way, is salaries. This is a breakdown by category, which I won't spend any time on this evening. And if you recall, on Monday night, I reviewed and provided additional information to some misunderstandings that exist in our community. I reviewed the misunderstanding around administrators, around what the actual requests and given increases were over the last few years. I reviewed for you the actual trend of all of our increases for the last 10, 15 years. I also provided you information about how many counselors versus teachers there are in the system. We talked about how programming equals staffing, staffing equals programming. We're a human capital-driven industry. That's what education is. In order to improve programming, more likely than not in this industry, you're adding staffing. I also presented to you, and as a reminder, that moving forward, we are averaging around a 2.7-ish contract obligations and increases. If we will be relegated to 2.58, as was suggested in some conversations through the budget meetings, we'll never, even for the next 3 years, be unable to meet our contractual obligations, which will mean reductions in not just staffing, but likely programming and services for our children. Now, there is another misunderstanding that I would like to address this evening. But I want to start off by saying, I believe in education, all forms of education. I believe in families who need to select private school, vote tech, vote ag, parochial. That is an individual family and child decision. But it was brought to my attention by a community member this week that there is some information on social media suggesting that kids are leaving Milford schools in droves over the last few years. Well, that was quite surprising to me, and I thought we should get the data on that. And I did. So the next couple of slides is to present to you some trending data of students who transferred out of Milford. So the misunderstanding was stated to me as parents are pulling kids out for private or home schooling. First of all, that's okay if families choose to do that. But the way it was suggested is that they were being pulled out because of a level of dissatisfaction. So if you note on the chart before you, over the last 7 years, actually, we reduced the number of students leaving Milford Public Schools by 50%. And below the chart are, and this is a state-required report that we run, by the way, and these are the categories that we have to count kids who leave our schools. And these numbers, the 206 for this school year, represent all of those reasons. Some kids left the state. That's why they leave Milford Public Schools. Some kids are going to parochial school. Some kids are transferring to a whole different institution because they have the different learning needs. Some kids are going to homeschooling. In fact, let's dig a little deeper into this number. Next slide. The top number, those top numbers represent new private school only. This is not cumulative. These are the new number of new students choosing to attend a private non-religious and a private religiously based institution. This year is the smallest number of students choosing to leave Milford Public Schools over the last 7 years to attend a private school. Second chart on this slide, the number of parents choosing to homeschool. We've been able to reduce that number. I will bring to your attention, there may have been some elevation in some of these numbers during our COVID years. These numbers do not suggest to me students leaving in droves. That our enrollment decline was projected long ago. Enrollment decline was projected based on reduced birth rate, an aging population of Milford, and housing that's attracting a younger population of working singles and apartments that are not 3 and 4 bedrooms where mom and dad and 2 and 3 kids live. A combination of all 3 of those movements, and by the way, a trend across the state of Connecticut, that's why enrollment is declining. That's why we may have 400 fewer students over the last few years. Lastly, this is data we pull every October because it is of great interest to us based on the type of programming we want to provide our comprehensive high schools. You will notice over the last 10 years, the number of 8th graders who are leaving Milford Public Schools for a different freshman experience. It had been rumored that kids, it's okay to be in Milford through 8th grade. But high school, we need to make a different choice. I push against that rumor because these are the numbers that prove it out. It's the lowest number in 10 years. 8th graders are choosing to stay to attend law and foreign. So, I hope that clears up the misunderstanding. And if there are any other misunderstandings that our community is consuming or they're confused about, I invite you personally to contact me. Call my office or email me, and I'm happy to do the homework like we did over the last couple of days on what's the data saying about kids leaving Milford Public Schools. So moving on, I want to remind the board and the public that what we're discussing tonight, they're not my recommendations. My recommendation was shared with you in January. It's called the superintendent's proposal at 4.392, which you adopted. Those are our needs. In fact, we had greater needs, if you remember. And we said a lot of no to recommendations and requests for this year. We did our due diligence. We started with 0. That's my commitment to this board and to this community. I start with 0 every budget season. And as we build, I require backup and justification for every request. That's not an easy way to budget. It's easier to take what we have and just roll up. And that's not what this administration does. The list in front of you, I just want to remind you, it slows us down and in many cases throws us way backwards. To unravel elementary world language is devastating. And I'm not sure when we'd ever be able to bring that back online if we're being provided an increased cap. And finally, this is a question for the long term that community members, elected officials, the board, and I need to grapple with. How will we support educational progress moving forward in difficult economic times? How can we strike a balance to be financially sensitive to our community while at the same time moving our schools forward? So at this time, Ms. Glennon, I think we'll enter into part 2. If you don't have any questions about those data points.
Any question on the data points that she just presented to us?
And I believe we are starting on page 4. Did we get through 1, 2, 3?
Let me look. Yes, we are. So we're starting on the top of page 4.
Sorry, getting there. So starting at the top of page 4?
Yes.
Okay, so a potential reduction would be the deferring of the replacing of the servers and desktop computers. We had, in many areas in the school district, we have a multi-year replacement cycle. Mostly technology falls in that category, but we have that with, for example, sporting equipment and uniforms, with gym mats, with different types of big, heavy, expensive items. We create a multi-year replacement cycle. In this case, computer servers and desktop computers will be deferred. I'm going to keep going through the end of the page, Ms. Glennon.
That's fine.
We're also going to reduce the amount of equipment that our Pupil Personnel Services Department has requested, along with eliminating the professional learning that they've requested, and reduce the number of independent evaluations. Mostly that will fall on the shoulders of current staff, both professional learning and evaluations. The impact of the evaluations in particular is that it will fall on the already heavy caseloads of school psychologists likely, and that will limit the ability to get to children to provide them with counseling services. So if we were to remove this along with school counselors, we could do a double whammy at the schools in providing support services for kids through counseling. Moving on to the system improvements list as seen in my letter in the board, the budget book. We would be eliminating the K-5 classroom library books. We would just go without those books and continue to use the resources we have that wouldn't exactly be aligned with the new curriculum that was presented to the board earlier in the school year. We would eliminate the science-based assured experience. We have created a grade 3 field trip experience that would be assured for all students in Milford Public Schools, and we've developed it in partnership with the Audubon. That is an integrated experience that likely would be one of our first mastery-based diploma experiences that we build at the elementary school that would start the trajectory toward graduation mastery-based diploma experiences. So we would have to defer that. The next item that we would not be purchasing is the new middle school math program. This would be quite the hit to our students and our staff members. We're in the process of piloting this program this school year. It has been a huge hit. It is a high leverage point for high quality instruction in our mathematics classrooms. It has really helped our teachers and students become much more student-centered in their approach to math. So we will be deferring the purchase of the new math program. We'd also be deferring the purchase of English language arts books in 612. This would additionally be devastating in that we've worked a lot with our English language arts teachers this year to provide them professional learning, to sort of pivot instruction compared to over the past. And in order to make that pivot instructionally, it requires a different set of books in classrooms. We helped teachers create more of a model that was student-centered, and this new fresh set of library books in each classroom would certainly help leverage that new instructional model. The same would apply with the 612 world language classroom libraries. And please know that curriculum has been rewritten in both of those areas. So the cycle, just to remind board members in the community that you want to research, develop, and revise curriculum over the course of 2 years, and as you adopt curriculum, you want to now purchase new resources to implement curriculum. So it sort of begs the question, why revise curriculum if you're not going to be able to provide the modified resources or additional resources to implement the new curriculum? We will not be purchasing robots for middle schoolers. If you recall, we talked about the robots can no longer be replaced that we have in the middle school. They have aged out. The company is not making parts or not repairing them anymore. So I venture to say we got good use out of that money when first spent. So now it's time to buy new, up-to-date robots. And I do want to clarify that these are not like cute little robots that we get to play with. Yes, kids get to play with it, and isn't that great that they're playing with it and enjoying it and they're learning. This robot actually is part of our Tech Ed and STEM career path, that we're really trying to develop engineers, computer science individuals, scientists, mathematicians. Things like this help spark interest in careers in the middle school. And that's really has been our goal. If you recall, we want students to investigate their careers while very young in Milford Public Schools. We would eliminate musical instruments for 2 of the high schools, 2 of the middle schools, pardon me. That was in an attempt to reach a level of equity to provide students with access to ukuleles and guitars. Additional musical instruments at the academy, again, providing those students access to resources. It was just brought to our attention this year that Law has not offered a pottery wheel experience where Foreign has for many years. So we thought, well, the requests that came to me were many more pottery wheels than this, but you see that a pottery wheel is kind of an expensive piece of equipment. So we thought we would approach this in a frugal manner and purchase 1 pottery wheel a year over the next few years. So we would be eliminating that. And then the addition of a senior world language course called Spanish Conversation and Culture. I will tell you, I remember the conversation I had with students my first 6 months here as superintendent. A few years ago, we were sitting in a conference room at Foreign, and students were advocating for themselves and saying, we want a Spanish experience as seniors. That we dead end on our Spanish experiences for those who are taking accelerated courses. And here we are finally, after a few years, with new curriculum, a new vision for world language, trying to offer something for students. So this would definitely be a setback for us.
Questions up to that point, board members? Ms. Wolf-Boynton?
So first, I'd like to commend the 2 alders that we have here tonight. I think it's really important that they're here doing their due diligence. I wish all of them were here tonight. But Dr. Kataya, I'd like to ask a question about the elimination of the Audubon program and the robots, and coupling that in with the potential elimination of the STEM program. It sounds like that with the elimination of all of these hands-on learning, that our students are going to have very little opportunity for that kind of problem-based problem solving that we were seeing so much success with.
So at the core of HQI is a very inquiry-based, student-centered approach to learning. So we're trying to infuse that in all new curriculum, experiences for students, the programs that we develop for them. So I can't say that there would be very little, but it would be diminished. And again, we'll go back to the conversation on Monday night. If we're not closing a school, then we're dipping from a lot of buckets. And some of those buckets may be redundant in category. So the 3 you just identified, the STEM work we've done for 5 years will take a huge hit. We're going to unravel STEM at the elementary and hand science back to elementary school teachers who are more than capable. But you know, an elementary day, that's kind of crunched. So it may not be with full focus as it is now. The Audubon experience, that's another elementary hit. And then the robots would be a middle school hit. So it's one category of STEM that is getting hit 3 times because you have to do a lot of those small cuts to get to 1.8.
So this may be an impossible question to answer, but I know that at times the quality of our Milford schools have been compared to schools in Fairfield County and other school districts that might have larger budgets than ours. And I think that's something that we've always been able to be very proud of, right? The high quality we have with the lowest amount of money. What are these cuts going to do to us, maybe specifically with science, which is such a focus, comparing what we're going to be able to offer our students compared to other schools?
So I just got whispered in my ear, thank you, Mr. Riccitelli. We are purchasing some robots for the middle school through grant money. So this would not be a complete cut, but that also is an example that we are trying to use other funds to supplement. not supplant, but supplement what we do with our general fund. So, thank you. I want to put that out into the universe that we are getting some robots for the middle school. You know, Ms. Wolfoyan, I am not a fan of comparing ourselves to other school districts. I don't think that is the business that I like to be in, but I understand your point. I think we've established a standard of programming and service to our kids where we need to ask ourselves, is this what we want for them? Or do we really want to unravel these STEM experiences for kids where all 11 of us were on the same page on let's get science teachers in the elementary school. Let's create labs. Let's create scientists. You know, I kind of created that visual of 5-year-olds in little lab coats, remember that? And kids seeing themselves as scientists. So that's the standard we've created in Milford. I'm not sure down the coast or up the Route 91. I don't know. But in Milford, that's what we want. And that is now not meeting the expectation of our goals for kids. And that's what's, I think, hurting right now. Because we set out on this journey for 5 years together, as long as I've been here. In a couple slides, you'll see, actually, if we were to unravel some of these things, it's a nice way to look at it. The amount of money we are wasting. So one should ask, how much money have we spent on science teachers at the elementary school to date? And if we unplug it today, what was that investment? Now, it wasn't for naught. We impacted elementary kids for 3 years. That was great. That was awesome. So it wasn't completely wasted. But that's an investment that is not returning on that through many years to come. And I think that's the focus of our conversation right now.
Thank you.
Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you. There's, throughout this document, this particular document, there's world language cuts at every level.
Yes.
To the point where 6th graders wouldn't have it. Our entire elementary schools wouldn't have it. We wouldn't be able to follow through on that conversation that you had a few years ago with the foreign students. So I'm wondering if we were to take these cuts and make these cuts to the world language program, what would the world language program in Milford look like for students at all levels?
You would start world language in 7th grade. You'd have an option between French and Spanish. And then you add Latin in high school. And you have those options. And if you're an accelerated world language student, you could max those out by junior year without a senior year option. But if you take a regular track, you could take world language all through 7th through 12th grade.
So you'd be missing 6 years, 7 years of world language that our kids would have right now? Is that right?
As the document reads, we would not be providing instruction, if this is what the board chooses,
Right.
pre-K through 6th grade.
Okay.
Which, let's just be honest, we recognize most school districts in the state of Connecticut don't offer world language at the elementary school. Now, I had the opportunity to be at the pulpit a little earlier, and behind me I'm listening to a conversation, and there's someone that says, wow, these kids get to have world language in elementary? When I went to school, and that person's about my age, so that was a few years ago, we didn't have that. But it was the vision of this board and this administration to not worry about what other districts are doing, that for our kids, we dreamed world language. So, again, not comparing ourselves to others, comparing ourselves to the standard we've established ourselves in Milford.
And I would argue that these conversations started pre-Dr. Kutaya. So these conversations about world language, STEM labs in elementary school, career pathways started as part of the long-range planning work with
Sure.
Dr. Fieser. So the conversations have been ongoing long.
So we've been chasing
several
this-
years. Yeah, 8 years.
8
9
years?
Yes, Mr. Pelliccetti.
Dr. Kataya, about the world language. I mean, the research bears out. The earlier we start kids with a world language, the more adept they become at an earlier age, and the more fluent they are by the time they get to high school, and the more successful they are in college. So if chosen, this would be something we would be eliminating for our children, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also for the PPS, those 3 line items, I mean, would that put the district at risk for an IEP if there was something missing, if something was not? I mean, just the equipment alone. I would assume the equipment is part of an IEP, and suddenly if you don't have it, you're out of compliance, correct?
So most certainly, we would not put the district at risk. We would always be in compliance, and we
It
would
just
find
makes
a
it
way.
harder.
Yeah, we would find a way to get it done. But with this line item reduced, let's say there's a student who moves in, or this is really for replacement of equipment, a piece of equipment breaks down, we just have to go to another line item, and we wouldn't do one thing in addition to this, so. And if I could make a parallel comment, on another page, we also talked about reducing strings instruction, eliminating 4th grade. It was my vision to bring that down, actually, starting some instrument instruction in 3rd. This not only devastates that, but takes us, and starting a musical instrument, research bears out, also should be done at an earlier age. And world language, the arts, it helps the whole child and makes them a better student overall.
If I could tag along on the PPS line, so the professional learning, the reduced professional learning, reducing that to 0. Can we hear a little bit about what the plan was for that professional learning, who it was for, and whether or not the, who would be giving it if it wasn't the staff?
Mr. Brown's going to take that.
What we were planning on was professional learning focused on students with dyslexia or learning disabilities for reading, and improving the training for our staff who are instructing those students. We have staff in-house who are able to provide that training, but they also have other responsibilities. So it's a matter of doing more with less. As Dr. Kataya said, we're a human capital business. What we're in effect doing is bringing our human capital to the limits of what they can produce. Probably 10% beyond what they can produce by asking them to take on professional learning responsibilities.
So this would be bringing in an outside source to do the learning, the professional
If we had the
learning?
budget.
Right, okay. Thank you.
And those are people who are specially trained to provide the professional learning. So we'll be asking our staff to take on some extra duties that wasn't our initial plan.
Okay.
And this was part of a 2-year plan. This is the second phase of what we're trying to do.
What was the first phase?
To bring in assessment tools and instructional tools for the staff to use.
So that's been done?
Yes, it has.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from board members? Ms. Doyle?
All right. I'm going to go back to Ms. Wolf-Boynton's question to start with. Going back to the sciences, and so I obviously peeked ahead and looked at our STEM work, and it's $1.8 million over the last 5 years, with the majority of the money in the last 2 years. In those last 3 years where it was across the board, to all the elementary schools for the costs that we've done with the 5 FTEs and then the 8 FTEs and then another.
Can we not jump ahead?
Well, it has to do with what I'm going to ask here.
Right.
So
Go ahead and get to the question, so maybe I can.
we're able to educate all of the students with the new STEM program. This wasn't like a partial, like, pilot program initially. It moved into all the schools initially.
Well, the first year rollout was COVID.
Right.
So we had to deploy our staff to reduce cohort numbers in most cases. So when we went live for everybody, it was everybody.
Okay.
And it was a modified STEM experience because we were masking, we weren't allowed to share the same magnifying glasses, we had to clean everything. So when we did start, it was for everybody.
Okay. So all these cuts, whether it's the science-based experience for grade 3, some robots for middle schools, and the 3 different things that were all science-based. we've spent a lot of time this budget season and year talking about the new testing and learning on authentic tasks and testing and things like that. How does this affect our ability to provide the proper education, science-based mastery tests that we have to start testing, I think, in 3rd grade? Is that right?
Yeah, so the science assessment is very hands-on. It's very different than we used to, color in the bubble for science. There are hands-on portions of the science assessment. So the more hands-on that experience in our classrooms, the better they may be prepared for testing. Now, that's a nice goal, and I'm glad we're doing that. But more importantly, we're about high-quality instruction. And there are some places where that naturally happens, and the science room is one of those natural places. But kids get immersed. They get lost in their learning, and they kind of like forget that they're learning. I think board members may have visited one evening that we opened our classrooms, and kids were there that night, and they were empowered. It's a magical place. You walk in, and it's like they take over the learning. And whether they're literally wearing a lab coat or not, they're walking around like they're scientists. So it embodies everything we're looking for in a vision of a learner for every kid, and it embodies the elements of high-quality instruction and the way kids challenge growth based on the framework that we use for relationships. It's a model place. So it's good for the system, it's good for kids, it's good for teachers.
And so if we take out these experiences at this point here, it'll be hard to kind of rework curriculum and things like that. There is a potential for needing to do curriculum again in the future, if that, depending on the time period of when this could be reinstated.
I think the curriculum will remain, but our expectations of how it's implemented has to change. So I know that not everyone may be familiar, but an elementary teacher's day is chock full. You follow an elementary teacher around and there's no time. And there are demands on reading, writing, and mathematics. There's new social studies curriculum coming. We've talked about the Right to Read Act a bit and what the requirements are there. We want kids to move more, to have more recess. So there are so many demands on the schedule that it's hard to provide the same level of experience that you would in a science lab. Because the elementary teacher is finishing up math, probably shifting kids over to music, quickly throwing together a lab. And I'm sure we have very skilled teachers that do it very well. I'm not diminishing, this is not a skill of teacher. It's the quality of experience cannot equal that of in a science lab. And therefore, the curriculum will remain the same, but not all of it may be implemented. So our expectations of a full implementation would have to change.
Okay. And then last question, deferred replacement cycle for servers and desktop computers. That's just a deferment. That's not that has to happen within the next year, 2 years, 3 years. And then it kind of piles on. I'm assuming that there are going to be
and then,
other ones break.
it's like when you don't tend to your vehicle, right? You are forced to when it breaks down. So deferrals are never good, right? In maintenance of facilities and technology, then you wait till the roof leaks and then you have to replace it, right?
Other questions? Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you. I just wanted to piggyback off of that last question about the servers and computers. Can you talk about what computers and servers we would be replacing were we not to defer it in that cycle?
Mr. Giancola?
It would be our servers for, I believe it was our financial servers, which we could extend the warranty one more year. But again, it falls under that same category of it's slower, and if it breaks, we're going to backups. Desktops would be a lot of administration machines, like the secretary's machines, which are aging. We kind of put everything on hold to get Chromebooks for COVID. That's what we spent all our money on. So our desktops are getting a little bit older, and the secretaries are starting to feel that impact as well.
Are there security concerns with the aging machines?
Right now, not with our desktops, and we're on par with servers, but I think we have one more year.
Okay, before it becomes a concern for you?
Before our end-of-life support for Windows
Okay.
OS.
If I could just jump in there for 1 second, and Louis, if you could just maybe elaborate. Our security and safety servers are separate from these that we would be replacing.
Correct. I mean, we run 37 servers, I believe, upwards of 80-something virtual servers on those. So we are up to date and we can accommodate it, but we're just pushing it off.
So how many of the, what did you say, 80 servers that we run? How many of those would be replaced if?
Well, it's 30-something physical servers, so we're
Okay.
looking at, I believe it was 3.
3 of the 30? Okay, thanks.
Other questions from board members? I did want to ask one more question on the K-12 ELA and world language classroom libraries. So was this like a phased-in project, or is this the total cost for what you?
Phased in.
Phased in, I was going to say, it's.
You've
the
seen
cost
this
is
before.
Very reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have some, but not all that you would feel you need.
Right, so, again, another approach to budgeting is to phase things over years. When you have 224 elementary classrooms, you're not buying books for 224 classrooms in 1 year. So we do it in a fiscally responsible manner, and we phase it in over years. So this would just be an interruption to that phase.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
Can I ask a follow-up on that?
Yes, Ms.
Is that going to create any inequalities amongst the schools if we defer this?
You know, I don't have that level of detail, but I do believe we created a prioritized list based on need.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I don't have that detail.
Any other questions before we move on? All right, we have
All right,
two more.
page 5.
Yep.
We will not replace the AP Physics and Statistics books. College Board releases new and updated text to align with new and updated curriculum. So what that would mean is that we hold on to the old text, not adopt the new one that's been released. It would provide, the old text would have some level of alignment, but not complete. We have provided the board and the community a presentation on the revamp of the HR department, shifting to more of a talent management development department. We also did some comparatives to demonstrate that our HR department is lean and mean, and to move toward a more comprehensive continuum of services for staff members. Just as a reminder, we have 1,300 of them. We were looking to provide an assistant director in that position, and that would be a non-certified position. Additionally, we have a year-over-year goal to become less paper dependent across the entire system. We've done some of this work in business services. We've done a lot of work in HR. This would be just a next step in our process of digitizing our hundreds of thousands of files that we have that we're required to keep. So please know there is statute on how many years we have to keep all files, student records and staff records. I think it amounts into like 50 years for some records. So it would allow us to digitize and make that department more efficient. We would not do the security camera replacement. This means deferring, skipping a year in the cycle. This is another example of a multi-cycle way of budgeting. So you can't afford it all in one shot, so you do it little over year. The danger here is cameras breaking down, not being efficiently connected to the network in the system. So that would be deferred. We would defer the video camera monitors connected to those cameras. Again, the camera, the monitor that exists in all buildings and here at the offices. There are computer systems that run those cameras and monitors. We would not replace those. And then there's a security radio replacement. Again, another cycle. So you see another example of a cycle that we want to keep our radios fresh, making sure that they're working with 100% assurance, and so we would not do that. And then we would not engage in the new state mandates that are unfunded, by the way, leaving the burden here on the local school district, on the requirement to create, to hold a full HVAC system evaluation, and the implementation of menstrual product dispensers in all schools.
Questions on these last pieces? Mr. DeYoung?
Thank you. I wanted to understand better and I know we talked about this during the budgeting process, but if you can just refresh our memory about the security improvements or replacements that we'd be deferring. What percentage of, let's say, the cameras, for instance, would we be deferring replacement on?
Approximately 10%.
Okay.
We have close to 800 cameras district-wide, and we were planning to do about 75 to 80 this year.
Okay.
So we would roll that out one more year.
And is that, would we be doing 75 to 80 every year?
Yes.
That would be the plan?
Yeah,
So-
actually, we started with 100.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
during our whittling down of the budget that Dr. Kataya presented to you, it got down to 75 to 80.
Okay, and so it doesn't necessarily equate to the fact that our oldest cameras are 10 years old. I wouldn't think that, right? How old are our oldest cameras?
No, we like to be on a 7 to 8 year replacement cycle for the cameras.
Mhm.
So the oldest ones are probably about 7 or 8 years old.
I imagine the technology has improved pretty dramatically since
Yeah.
8 years ago. And then what about the radios? The other one, I understand, but the radio, what percentage of radios would we be replacing?
Same thing,
Same
about,
thing.
about 10%. We have over 500 radios that the schools use, day in and day out for communication, as well as the ones that are connected directly to our first responders. So our goal is to replace about 10% of them each year.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Ms. Boynton?
So just following up on that question, you mentioned security, you talk about possible gaps in safety. Are we talking about potential situations where our children could be at risk?
No, we're not going to. As I said, all of the cameras are working and they're maintained very well. We have an excellent system of preventive maintenance on all of our systems district-wide. So, if we were to have a camera go down, we're going to replace that camera very quickly. We would do what we need to do, but we risk having cameras go down and need to be replaced, rather than replacing them before they break down.
Thank you.
Ms. McDonough Souza?
Thank you. With regard to the HVAC system evaluation, the new state mandate, my recollection when we talked about this during budget season is that the implementation of the state mandate was somewhat in flux because it would have been impossible for all Connecticut districts to comply with it. And so do you have an update on that, on the law? And then also, I also seem to recall that the 130,000 that's on here that's attributed to that was definitely on the low end. And so can you remind me how we came to that figure if it wouldn't be enough to cover the compliance anyway?
Sure. It is below what we anticipate the cost is going to be. And we did that because we needed to. We needed to present a budget that was still 4.392% over last year's. So we had to whittle it down. Our great hope, and through our professional organizations, we're lobbying heavily to have that law either phased in or the scope of the work lowered. There is legislation that's on the book, legislation that's proposed to do certain things, but up till now, none of it has been passed.
Right, okay.
So we're still on a path to have that mandate, which goes into effect January 2024.
Okay, thank you.
While I would never actually propose that we disobey legislation, Are there districts that just say we can't do this and don't do it?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
And would it truly put us in jeopardy of losing state funding?
I think we would probably ask for an extension, and whether or not the state allowed that or not, it's something that we don't want to get into, obviously. But, you know, it's
And not that, I
it's a
mean, this
huge
is
cost.
certainly, it is a big cost, and we want to make sure that our HVAC systems are well-running, but, you know, as you've told us in the past, we're fastidious about maintaining our systems, and we know that they are well-running, so we're kind of going to be told probably what we already know, by and large.
That's what we think, yes. We think we're going to pay a lot of money for them to tell us that our systems are well maintained.
Right, okay. This seems silly. I did want to ask about the College Board, the AP Physics and AP Statistics textbooks. So would deferring that expense, does it reduce the students' risk of the chance that they will do well on the tests?
I haven't personally reviewed the text, but there's a purpose to refreshing the curriculum, the coursework, and then they also issue a new textbook, so they go hand in hand.
Okay.
So if there are any updates in the course, then I would imagine teachers would supplement the text, which is done all the time. But our kids deserve a new text when the course is refreshed. So we do that regularly. When the course is refreshed, we purchase the new text.
You're talking about AP?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, and so these are textbooks that the AP has selected to be used with its courses?
AP Physics and Stats,
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't know if there was more than one type of AP Physics textbook that can be selected.
I don't think so.
Okay. Ms. Petrosky?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions about the HR cuts. So I look at the cut of that new FTE, and we are living, obviously, we've all talked about this, in an environment where there aren't a lot of teachers coming up through the schools. It's slim pickings trying to find people. And my understanding was that one of the improvements was being able to take care of our teachers the full line for retention purposes as well. Do you have an idea of how this may or may not impact our ability to retain the teachers that we have and the quality of teachers that we have?
Well, I'll tell you, our HR department does great work. And what we were interested in doing was expanding the continuum of services that we provide teachers. We're in a tough place right now because the teacher pool is very, very, very shallow. We talked about this. Pipelines at the university level are dried up. Not a lot of people want to go into teaching. We're fighting with one another across districts over people. Teachers are in the driver's seat on negotiating money and picking between districts, so we have to be an attractive school district, which we talked on Monday that this kind of stuff doesn't help. So one, it would help with recruitment, actually, I think, Ms. Petrosky. We were imagining adding this position, which I'll just underscore again. We have a very small HR department for the size district we are.
How many people? 4? 3? 4.
But there's only one director. The others are clerical individuals who do mighty work. They go above and beyond the scope of a clerical position. So we get a lot for the people that are in our department. But part of this dream was to allow our director to leave campus and go and recruit and go to job fairs and be much more strategic on not just focusing on supporting our non-tenures, but the greatest number of teachers we have are like between that 10 and 25 year experience. And those are the individuals that we want to support and retain. And in an environment right now where even experienced teachers are looking for higher salaries in other districts, there's a lot of poaching going on. So we want to be able to create a support system in an environment that people want to stay despite those temptations. And we're really probably need to shore up some of how to help our staff members establish a healthy exit ramp for when it's time, after you've spent so many years here. Let's help with retirement planning and that transition. So it's just, there's a few people doing a lot of work, and we just like to stretch our continuum to recruit, to retain, and to treat our retirees in a way that we help phase them out in a respectful way.
Okay. I guess the other piece of that is even the digitizing of the required files. When we get to this, I imagine, and maybe you can help clarify this, that digitizing some of this will limit the amount of storage space we need. And I know that storage space across the district is just a problem. I imagine that if we don't digitize on a regular basis, all we're doing is adding extra paper. Now we've got to find more place to storage. And that also comes with a cost. Is that a correct assumption?
It is. We affectionately refer to the basement occasionally. Is it in the basement?
It's all over.
There really is a basement here. And then, or is it in this closet back here? Or is it in your closet? Like, this is not, no joke, a conversation we have. So which closet is it in?
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, it's a matter of efficiency. I don't know the last time I created a paper file for myself. Not living in a Google world, right? So now we have a different workflow to our positions and workplace. And while it is still very much done, it's just less efficient to run down to the basement to go find a file on an employee who worked here 25 years ago.
Or imagine spending 20 minutes trying to determine which closet it might be in.
After we determined.
Never mind.
Oh, the
finding it, right?
1962 files are in the back corner of the basement. And
So how often do you do that?
How often do I do what?
Go
Look for
have
something?
to look for something.
All the time, every
All the
day.
time.
Today, somebody asked a question from your department, and we had to go find the file. Whereas if it was online, digitized, it would have taken 2 minutes, and it took maybe 15 instead, because we had to find it, and we had to look in it. So, yeah, every day you're looking for something. And the hope was that we would see how our department went with personnel files, and then carry it on into payroll, student records, and just kind of go from there. Because it is expensive, but once it's done, it's done.
Right, okay.
So,
Other questions, board members? Mr. Fowler?
Is it all right if we go back to, if I go back to the beginning a little bit, or?
back to the beginning.
Yeah, back to the beginning. I only have a couple questions. So from my understanding, Harborside has an operating cost about like $4 million, probably a little bit over. So I just want to, but I know that it's listed that we'd save 1.7 million. So
I'm sorry, can you let us know where you came up with the 4 million? I don't know that we discussed that.
Oh, I mean, I was looking at the budget that we passed, but I was just wondering how, how is that being absorbed by, is that being absorbed by the two middle schools, the 1.7, like the other operating costs for the Harborside Middle School?
Well, it's not like a complete shutdown.
Yeah.
Because we have to put 200 kids at eeach school about, right?
Okay.
It's not that clean.
Right.
So you still need staff members.
Okay.
You still need special ed support, paraprofessional support, you still need transportation. One could mistakenly say, great, it takes $4 million to run Harborside, close it, we save $4 million. That is definitely not the right equation.
That's what I was just making sure. Okay. And another one I have is that it seems like, year after year that, the mayor and his team have talked about, lowering taxes and we're in a good financial state, but, and we're making this decision not so much for enrollment, as you said, but for financial reasons. So, someone like me suspects that, like, was Milford in a healthy financial state all along? I just wanted to know if the mayor had ever approached you about, you know, maybe like a 5-year plan of maybe potentially closing a school. Did he ever indicate to you that, you know, maybe this might happen? Has that conversation ever come up between you and the mayor at all?
I'm not sure what the "this" is that you're referring to.
Meaning, like, the possibility of maybe even closing a school?
No, that would be something I talk to the Board of Education about.
Okay.
That, in my role as superintendent, that would be a Board of Education and superintendent dialogue.
Yeah, okay. That's it.
That's it, thank you. Ms. Doyle?
I'm going to come back to Ms. Petrowski's question on HR. If we were to go the route of closing a school, where we would be losing, based on this, approximately 30 EFTs on each school, and we didn't add the additional person to HR, how would that affect the ability to do that? I'm assuming that losing 30 people takes a lot of work to cut them, unemployment, all of those kind of aspects involved in terms of HR paperwork.
Well, Ms. Doyle, no, go ahead,
I
please.
was going to say that would be done before we would hire someone, right? If we had to close a school. It's very time consuming. The unemployment claims and all the paperwork that comes in, it's very time consuming. So it would be affected for sure. Okay.
As well, I want to remind you, we need that position whether we close a school or not. But
Right.
secondly, if this board decides to close a school, which can't happen till May, anybody in an administrative position and teacher leaders and assistant principals and possibly department heads or curriculum leaders, teacher leaders, will have to get everybody on board. That's all we're going to be doing. Because we have to do that in
My point is already
2.5 months.
It's already a very stressed department, and we're adding an additional stress
sorry.
on top of it.
Yep.
And then if we decided not to add that position on top of not closing a school, that's a big stress in addition of all the other.
And you're doing it at,
Like
different
speed.
offices have different busy seasons. HR, there's like no vacation time for HR departments during June and August in a school system, because that's when they're the busiest. They're hiring, they're processing people, so it's already a busy hire season, right? I don't know how much hiring we're going to be doing this summer, though, when we go to school.
Other questions? Ms. Boynton?
I'm Mr. Fowler, and other comments just made me think, these potential cuts have such huge community-wide effects that go just beyond the school district. So many of us are so concerned. I'm sure the mayor is very concerned about the impact that this might have on our city. I'm just wondering, since all this information has been released, has the mayor been in touch with you to talk about these ramifications?
No, he has not.
Other questions? All right, so we're done with the document.
We
I
have
think you
one
have some
more sheet?
additional. Yep.
Okay.
So what are we looking at?
We received a couple of questions from board members. That actually was a good perspective that I had not considered, so thank you for the questions. It was asked, what's the total investment that has been made to this point in the past 5 years on the following programs? So these are the biggies that we've really been able to institute the last few years: elementary world language, elementary STEM, and school counselors. Oh, pardon me, yes. And HQI, but we didn't have enough time to pull that one together because HQI has tentacles everywhere. So in total, including teacher, FTEs, curriculum or professional learning, instructional supplies, and FF&E, that means furniture, fixtures, and equipment. In the world language area, we have since 2019, I will say, so 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 4 years, we've spent $1.5 million on that program. At the elementary STEM area, we have spent since 2018 $1.8 million. And with school counselors, we have spent 1.4 million. So if you were to add that up, we're looking at $4.8 million about in these three major transformative programs that if you were to unplug today, again, the benefit was the kids who engaged in that. That's the big win right there, right? We don't want to discount that win. But the tragedy here is we've invested 4.8 and we're unplugging it. And I just want to continue to say, I don't know when we'd be able to bring these back online if we're being held to a 258 year after year.
I would also venture to guess that you could extend out the benefit of the dollars spent and equate it. I don't have the information, but that there is deferment expenses going, forward, where for every dollar you spend on, say, school counseling, you're going to reap the benefit out in years in terms of services students might not need going forward, correct? Is that what you say with counselors?
And just also, not expenses we don't incur, but life challenges that children don't incur, and that families don't incur. So it's more than just dollars and cents, it's quality of life for a lot of our youngest children and our teenagers in the city. And we really have to take that into account. We can't put a number on how many children didn't become depressed.
Correct, right.
Or how many children didn't attempt suicide. But we know that will be prevented.
And for me, personally, I see that same benefit in things like the arts, athletics, the benefits that students see. It's way more than the dollars and cents that we pay. I mean, these are dollars that are, we've gotten tenfold a benefit beyond what the dollars were.
Ms. Glenn, if we can underscore what you're saying, I think that might be on a lot of people's minds, right? The whole notion, the only dialogue that I think has happened in public about our budget is around counselors. And I'm not sure we've said enough about that publicly. It is perplexing to me why we don't understand we need counselors. There is not a day that goes by that there isn't a news story that runs where kids are struggling. And there are tragedies and crises occurring every day. And we have numbers that are ticking up. And while we are a great school system and are a great city, our kids are not immune to what's happening in this world. And they're struggling. And guess what? Adults are too. And we know that personally in Milford just recently. So the fact that we're saying out loud publicly, why do we need counselors, is confusing to me. And I think that's the sword we die on. We need counselors for our kids.
As I said, and I'll restate what I said on Monday. If it, we don't put fluff in our budgets. We budget for what we need, and if we, as a board, we felt we didn't need something, it would not be in the budget. If it's in the budget, it's there for a reason. So, do we have is there other information to share with us from the questions, or is that it?
I do want to say, a lot of these things are our best guess on March 29th. If we have to get serious about some of these things, then we're going to dig in and create more detail. Okay. So going back to Mr. Fowler's point, we say it's 1.7. Well, we have to identify kids, we have to identify streets, we have to identify buses, we have to identify where are the needs on 6th grade teachers, 7th grade teachers, or elementary. Where do these kids go? Where do those 4th grade teachers go? So those details will create a more accurate figure. So I just want to be careful that no one says in May, wait a minute, you said 1.7 in March. Well, this is our best guess right now. Okay?
Also, there were two other parts to the questions that came in. one was the HQI, and the other one was the expenses. Could we elaborate on the expenses that there will be for, if the board chose to close the school, such as moving costs and things like that? We're doing the research on what it cost us the last time we did it, but we haven't been able to finish that yet. So we will get back to you on that question and the HQI question.
Okay. And then on the spreadsheet, Mr. Riccitelli just added the account numbers for attributed to the items. So you have that as well. Yes.
I just wanted to make one comment on the elementary STEM specifically. The investment of 1.8 million is for obviously the science labs and the increase in the STEM, but those practices go far beyond science.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's teaching our kids how to create a hypothesis in life, how to follow those logical steps that you would perform in a science lab. How do you make those jumps? And it's beyond just science. It also improves their abilities in math, ELA, etc., correct? Am I correct in that assumption that this is far more than just science?
It's for their lives and for the future. I'm looking at, I've followed the work of the Institute for the Future for a long time now, most of my career. And just received this in the mail today, and I thought I'm going to take it to the budget meeting just in case I get to use it. So here, thank you, Ms. Petrosky. So they are deeply steeped in research on what do the future careers look like, and they project way out. Okay, and it's a little scary, exciting when you open up this, and it projects out all these types of careers that are going to be available for our graduates, and just like now and in a few years. And there's a lot of AI, body, kind of medical kind of stuff. But as you're saying STEM labs, I'm reading the strategies and skills that they're predicting will optimize future workers. They're everything that you just said. Sense-making, resiliency, pop-up enterprising, human-machine collaboration, reputation management, innovation, learning, sustainability, and well-being. I think we've just talked about all that tonight and some of the things we're planning to cut.
Talking about, not planning.
Sorry.
It's very worrying.
Okay, I'll read the public comment statement in the event that we have individuals in the audience who would like to make comment to us tonight. Speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs. The board encourages speakers not to express personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Milford Board of Education personnel or any person associated with Milford Public Schools. Security issues and matters relating to negotiations and grievances will not be permitted. Consistent with the principles of the Federal Education Right to Privacy Act, discussion of students is prohibited absent parental waiver. Public comment does not allow for two-way conversation between speakers and the board. We welcome and appreciate your comments and opinions, and all will be taken into consideration. Please note our meetings are televised and live streamed on YouTube. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. And public comment tonight is limited to agenda items only, so that would be the budget. Yes? You can stand up, you can use the podium, whatever you would prefer.
Betsy Adler, 1423 Windward Road, and thank you all for the wonderful presentation. I'm so sad I could cry that we have to do this at all. Cutting a budget, it's all the essential things. You know me, I'm always emotional. I am so proud, though, that you found possibilities and that you were able to express to everybody the reality of what it does to children. In short, I'd like to mention that the essential specifics that we talk about, the expertise that a counselor can give, is a life skill forever, as well as the science teacher in the labs and the process, decision-making, problem-solving, thinking critically. All of those are life skills. It's not just focused just in one place. So you take your social worker or your psychologist, put together with a science teacher, all together you have people that care about making a child grow in a healthy way and be able to work in a world that's filled with so many high and lows, as we know. So building confidence in patients and find ways to get rid of the bullying through using personal ways of reaching children, specifically using supportive ways of connecting, resolving conflicts, and in short, improving relationships, communication, and enhancing the potential that each child has. Again, it's through the various things that we're thinking of moving out, the guidance counselor, social worker, the counselor, and the science are essential. You can see my older age, I'm definitely starting to get a little slow again. In short, I'm totally for making the child be able to be all that they can be and make these cuts hurt so much, and I just want to make sure I can tell you that as a citizen. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to address the board?
Jessica DeYoung, 74 Oriole Lane. I have to share my neighbor's hard feelings. So I think maybe we all need a minute just to take a deep breath. Because this is really, really hard. It has been really hard to hear what you all discussed on Monday and what we're hearing tonight. First and foremost, thank you for your service on this board and for your work on the education budget. I am one of many Milford Ed advocates. Just 3 short years ago, we were amidst a lockdown to protect us against a virus that was ravaging our area. Talk to any student, parent, guardian, staff, or educator. The large-scale effort that it took by all of these people, plus the administrators during the pandemic, to keep the virtual and literal school doors open was nothing short of Herculean and traumatic. Today, to meet our community at this moment with this proposed reduction is nothing short of a self-inflicted pandemic and further trauma. Our community is just getting back to the first normal school year. We wear red tonight for a few reasons. Red is the color of the big heart for our small city. Red is the color in support of public education. Red represents the fire in us to fight for our public school system and what it represents. Our choice to live in Milford is intentional. You will begin to see red throughout the city as our momentum builds. We look forward to engaging our city officials, including all of you, in this budget process as it moves forward. Thank you.
So anybody else would like to address the board?
I usually don't read off the paper, but I don't want to miss anything tonight. My name's Theodore Boynton. I'm the president of Milford Paraprofessional Union here in Milford. I'm not here to speak about the paras tonight. That's a 30 Wiley Street, Milford, Connecticut. I'm not here to speak about the paras tonight. I'm here to speak about the issues. Been a lifelong Milford resident. Been in the Milford school system since 1964. Both as a student and an employee of the Milford Board of Education. And over the years, I've worked for the Board of Ed and had many things happen over the years. I currently am a paraprofessional at Jonathan Law High School. I'm a bus monitor, sophomore class advisor, student council advisor, key club advisor, assistant girls softball coach, former football coach. Over the years, I've seen many changes in the Milford school system. We went from K to 8 to the middle school concept. I've seen huge improvements in our buildings, our grounds, as well as the renovations of our schools. All these changes have been for the betterment of our students, our faculty, and Milford as a whole. Today's day and age, we call that progress. As I stated, I've been in the Milford school system since 1964. Minus my years at college and a little break in the 90s. Basically, my whole life I have been in the Milford school system. Why, you ask? Because I love to go to school. I often tell people the hardest part of my day is putting my feet on the ground, and then I'm off and running. I've always been proud to be part of the Milford school system until today. I am disgusted, disappointed, sad, and extremely, I can't say it on TV. What is going on here right now is a travesty for kids, for the faculty, the staff, and Milford, and most of you, the Milford Board of Education. Over the past 5 years, you presented a budget which has been fair, a budget that has been going to keep us going in the right direction, to combine progress. You're not asking for 6%, and suddenly, all the hard work, all the planning, and all the continued success of the Milford school system is in doubt. It's being questioned by slashing $1.8 million. Why? My question is why?
30 seconds.
Why now? It's mind-boggling that many of these aldermen, finance board members put their stamp of approval on your past budgetary plans and put our kids and our city and the whole Milford school system in jeopardy. They are our future. Let us not make this more confused, but try to continue to make each day better. So the next day we can continue our current path to make these kids love school the way I know it is. And I continue to make progress. It is not to digress. Remember, we are supposed to be the small city with the big heart.
My name is Kara Flannery, and I live at 41 North Street in Milford. And I have to say, after watching these last two meetings, Dr. Kataya, I feel like this is one of the best commercials for Milford Public Schools to review all the things that we've done and all the things that we've built over the last few years under your leadership. Foreign languages. Doesn't everybody want foreign languages? K to 12, we've got them, but they're at risk now. And I wonder why. Why are we putting this amazing jewel in the crown of Milford at risk? Why? We have one of the lowest mill rates in the region. And I think that's why this obsession with low mill rates, tax cut, on the backs of our families, our kids, our educators, it is so, I'm just beside myself. So, I've always felt so guilty advocating for kids, advocating for schools. What a burden I am for taxpayers, right? Okay, so you know what? We did our homework. We did a mill rate analysis, right? So what are we asking Milford taxpayers to come up with to make all this go away, this $1.8 million that we're sitting here going line by line, school closings, losing all these great programs? You know what we're asking Milford taxpayers? It's for a homeowner with the median home in Milford, $400,000 a year. Their current mill rate would go from 26.94 to 27.14, it's $42 a year. So we're gonna put this we're gonna put this district at risk for the same price as a burger and a few beers that anyone here is gonna go do on a Friday night. Really? Really, Milford? Is this what you're gonna do? I'm just disgusted. I'm disgusted. And to me, it ain't over till it's over, because I know where it ends. The buck stops at the Board of Aldermen. There are 15 aldermen up there. We need 10 courageous people to vote to reinstate these cuts. 10. And it's funny because people are telling me, parents don't vote. That's what they say. They're not listening to us because we don't have the political capital apparently. Well, that's over because it's funny. I thought to myself, I was so angry. I said, why are we even talking about this? I hate waste too. I don't like waste too. You know what's waste? This conversation. The fact that you had to spend weeks preparing these reports. The fact that we're all here talking about it. That's waste. Sorry. But so it's just, and then I thought, no, this is the conversation we need to have. We need to have this conversation. And for what it's worth, we are building the political capital that we need. And you all remember that. We're going to have your backs. we're gonna be with a board of aldermen, a parent, they're texting me, my phone's, ringing off the hook, what can I do, what can I do? I say, who's your alderman? Who's your alderman? And a lot of them don't know. And, in 4 weeks,
Time.
everyone is gonna know who their alderman is, every parent in Milford, and we're gonna remember in November. So.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Ellen Kolosky, 326 West Main Street, Milford, Connecticut. I spoke on Monday night, just a little bit, and I need to talk again tonight. I'm the president of the Milford Education Association, and that's our teachers union. We had a lot of discussion tonight about STEM and science, cause and effect. We teach that to our children in science and other subjects, of course. But the cause was the reduction of the $1.8 million, and now we're talking about the effect. And the effect is going to impact our children, and it will impact them in a negative way. As educators, we're asked to be reflective practitioners. We need to reflect, and the Board of Aldermen will need to reflect, on the heels of COVID. You want to take children that have a home base, and you want to close their school, relocate them, put them on different buses, have them have to make new friends, but losing the friends that maybe are going to different schools. Closing a middle school, also not a good option. The academy, not a good option. We are faced with no good options. And so again, I'm going to ask that we go to the Board of Aldermen meeting, that we help them understand that they need to put back that money and to support the superintendent's full budget. Thank you. And I want to say thank you all for wearing red as well.
Is there anybody else who'd like to address the board?
Christopher Thomas, 8 Argyle Road. I haven't come to one of these in a few years because after many years of some issues in this town, my son, after 5th grade, went to a magnet school because there were issues with the education in this town. This time, he's 22 now, graduating from college next month. My younger two have gone K to 12. I have a freshman at law, one who graduated law last year, is at SUNY Stony Brook. And things were getting good. Dr. Fieser, Dr. Kataya, principals, Sue Glennon, other board members, thank you for your service. You guys have done a wonderful job with this district. I have to hope the Board of Finance made a mistake. I have to hope the Board of Aldermen are living in some weird, bizarro world. Because I'd hate to think they are idiots, they are cowards, they are stupid. This is a town that gets in the New York Times now for how good the quality of life is. This is a town where, based on our property tax system in Connecticut, we pay less than almost every great town in the state. We have an education system and a town and public services that rivals anyone. People came here in droves during COVID. Our property, the value of our property skyrocketed. And again, I really have to assume this was a mistake, that a bunch of men who don't really understand what's going on want to try and screw it up. So I encourage everyone to come out to Parsons on Monday night. In fact, let's make sure they know there's so many people that it's the auditorium?
City Hall.
City Hall, yeah. Let's go to City Hall, make them move it. There's so many people.
Not here.
Wherever it is, let's make them have to move it to one of the high schools, one of the big auditoriums. We've done that in the past. We've gotten parents, we've gotten people out there. I don't know if this is some political maneuvering, but I'm calling on every elected official in this town, state rep, state senator, mayors, former mayors, interim mayors, aldermen. All right, I don't even see that many aldermen here tonight. I know there's a couple, But come on, what's going on? What is your reason?
30 seconds.
If you're gonna vote to cut the school district, you stand up in public on Monday night and you say, this is exactly why I think the schools don't deserve the money. Don't play games with numbers. Don't tell people, oh, we're worried about the
50
taxes.
seconds.
That's a lie. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me, because yes, we will remember in November. I've had several years with nothing to do. I got nothing but time. All right, I'm gonna be an empty nester soon. All right, so please, you know what? My wife's like, oh good, you're getting riled up again. Yes, I am. Thank you guys very much.
Hi, I'm Terry Smith, 90 Snow Apple Lane. I just wanted to talk about that situations like this don't just like happen. It's not like, you know, we just, oh, this year there's like this budget issue and suddenly we need to cut 1.8 million. Like, I work in budgets, that's what I do for a living. I work in facility management. I manage millions of dollars, tons of properties, and I understand that this isn't something that just one day magically happens. This is years and years of issues that we have been lied about in Milford. I am concerned that we've been told that we're, you know, in a good fiscal situation, and we haven't been. I have been concerned about no, we don't raise taxes, we don't raise taxes, we don't raise taxes. That's not normal, I feel like, especially with, you know, the way of the world today and all the increases and everything that we pay for. So I am concerned about the politics of Milford. I'm concerned that this, you know, leading up to this has all been based around politics, and it shouldn't be. Our kids should be a focus. Our kids are important. Our school district, obviously, is what creates our future community, and not being fiscally responsible up to a point where we suddenly need to cut 1.8 million is extremely concerning. I think a lot of things should have been done differently up to that point. I appreciate everything that the Board of Ed does. I know it's really, really hard work. A little concerned that we have contract obligations that we can't meet without significant increases. I don't really know how that happens along the way. When you make a contract, it's for a term, and you can kind of project that out. So you should be making decisions along the way to make sure you can meet those obligations without significant increases. So not really sure how that kind of happens, where it gets to the point where we need to increase the budget significantly to meet those obligations. Those should be things that should be forecasted out very, very long. And also the Board of Aldermen should be aware of those things, what increases we're going to need in the future coming up with, you know, just inflation and all of those items. So just really disappointed. It kind of, you know, closing a school is a significant change to our kids. Maybe we can be a little more creative in the future of, you know, we have a lot of really old schools that we're paying a lot of money to maintain. Maybe we can get creative and think of ways that we can redistrict, maybe build some new buildings that are more efficient. Just throwing some things out there. But anyway, thank you for your time. Thank you.
I wasn't going to stand up here, but I'll go for it, because I want to follow on the coattails there, as far as creativity. I have a lot of ideas, too many sometimes. But this, I think, could be, I know you can't answer here, but I call BS on the fact that Milford doesn't have money to cover this because it's you know, inflation. Inflation is affecting all of us. So what's so hard to understand that inflation will affect the school budget? And I know Milford, the public school system got its ARPA money. I'm not sure I'm happy with how the Milford, you know, Milford City chose to use its ARPA money. And I don't know what's so wrong about, like, in a situation of doing more than paying lip service to valuing our children. This whole country only pays lip service. Oh yes, we love our children, we love our children. But time and again, early childhood education and child care is not made an investment and a priority. Our schools we're only giving lip service to this to like caring about our children and our future if we don't put our money where our mouths are. And besides the fact that I'm not a parent of a child in the school system anymore. There are a lot of people like, so our aldermen should not think that it's just parents who care. We need to, like, you know, those dotted lines where you like to follow, where children used to like let's still do, I guess, like learn to do handwriting. Like follow the dotted lines to form those letters. Well, we need to follow the dotted line to the fact that fully funded, there is no larger indicator of a strong community, a strong economy, any town, than the school ratings. That's what brings businesses and families to Milford. It's what brought me here. And if we don't invest in our schools, our economy will just stagnate. And I don't think, and our property values will be affected negatively, as we've said. So here's the creative idea, because I know the timekeeper is doing a great job. So, are you all sitting down? Because I think this is going to knock your socks off. Ready? Have you all considered how much money the Board of Ed could save if we replace? Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay.
30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds is perfect. Okay, have you considered replacing, supporting our police department, our police force, by returning school resource officers to our police force
15 seconds.
and replacing them with social workers? It's a win-win. Thank you. And thank you all for all your hard work.
Good evening, all. My name is Cassandra Schull, 445 High Street. Thank you all for taking the time to hear me, as well as everybody else here today, and for all of the hard decisions that you have to make this time. I have a 10-year-old at Matthewson Elementary School. We're currently districted to attend Harborside Middle School next year. I'm here today as a prior City of Milford employee, a Cub Master for one of our local PAC Scouts here, as well as a commissioner of the Milford United Soccer Club. Not speaking on their behalf, but a member here in the community who works a lot with our children, not as an educator. I'm here asking you to reconsider this proposed budget and take another look at it. Admittedly, I've been a parent here in the school district since my son was here in kindergarten. I came to Milford for these schools. I worked very hard for a very long time to be able to afford to live in a city or a place where the schools were good for my son. And the fact that this budget could implicate and make a severe difference on his livelihood, his friends' livelihoods, the teachers, and everyone else in the city just makes me sick. I learned through social media and through all the postings and the meetings that occurred from Monday. I've done tons of research. I spent a majority of the day yesterday crying because I couldn't believe that making changes to our students' education, which should be the top priority, which is the priority for a Board of Education for Milford Public Schools. Our children are the priority. Everything else is not a priority. Making life the best quality for them is what is most important. It is mind-boggling to me that in 2023, when we have thousands of students who depend on us for their education, that we could potentially face the closure of another school. How can we be excited to be this small city with a big heart when we can't even focus on the future of our students in a sense that will help continue to grow their futures? Making a cut to funding would severely impact programs for students and their overall quality of life. We forget as adults that for some students, going to school is their safe space. Their safe space away from parents or family situations where they don't get to eat, where they don't get to sleep at night. And our schools are sometimes, for some students, the only place they feel safe. And it's the only time they can be themselves. I had the honor to be able to attend the all-district band concert last night, and it was magical. seeing the number of students being able to be
15
back in
seconds.
one place since post-COVID was amazing. The things that we offer in these schools are what bring people to Milford and what have brought people to Milford. And I can honestly tell you that myself and my family, if
Time.
implications and the education is going to be changed, it's going to impact our real estate market, it's going to impact our economic development,
Time.
and it's going to just not be good. So please, everybody, anywhere, please show up, make your voice heard. This is the first time I'm doing it, and your voice makes a difference.
Is there anybody else who'd like to address the board this evening? Seeing none, I just want to quickly thank residents for coming out. We appreciate that you've been here for 2 nights, and please know that this is difficult for us as well. For the board, thank you for your engagement, and you know, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what the next steps are. I'll be totally honest with you. But I want you to kind of just take some time and digest all the things we've talked about. Digest what you've heard, and while I consider what the next steps will be. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, if there's no objections, we'll adjourn at 8:40. Thank you, everybody. All right.
The next step, we're going to knock some sense into the board of all.